I like making 3D stuff, but there's so many programs to choose from. I decided to try making the same thing in 10 different 3D programs. I've got the normal bog standard ones, and maybe even some wacky ones. I'm limiting myself to 1 hour in each program, so I have to learn and model at the same time. I'm going to make 10 Koroks, because I think they're cute. And I'm going to be rating each model based on how much I like them. To get a baseline, I'll be starting with like the one that most people use. It's free, it does everything, it's great. The only problem with it is it's the most frustrating thing to learn in the whole world. So, I started with a cube, and I deleted it. And I switched it to a bit of a sphere. Made it a little bit oblong, and then I cut off the top and separated it to 2 different sides. Popped out a couple legs and some arms out of the sides and the bottom. And then I adjusted the little thing on the top to make it into 2 little twigs. Set up a little bit of lighting and adjusted the arms a little bit more. And then switched to making the leaf, which is 2 circles joined together to make the rounded edges. I fucked around with it for a bit. Had some troubles with the mesh getting weird. Had to re-add more cuts because I made it poorly. As you keep seeing, I am adding more and more and more, and it's taking so long. And then curved it around the body a little bit to make it form a little bit better. Add a little stem, and then I got straight to texturing. The modeling's basically done. Painted it all directly in Blender, did a little bit of messing around to make it easy to paint on the front. Just did a really simple couple colors, because it matches the reference I had. Painted the little face on there, looks nice. Then I had to go and do the body. This one I did less work to make the texture mapping, but meh. Readjusted the proportions, and then boom, I was finished. He's perfect. I like him. He's cute. And that's the only goal that I'm going for. I'm gonna give him 5 out of 5 default cubes. Taking it back a few decades, I'm using Animator, which released in 1999. And you can absolutely tell. It oozes that slightly horrific early 3D vibe.
Just think overcad.
It's more recently known as being the software that was used to make Baldi's Basics.
Shut up, nerd!
I started with a sphere. It's gonna shock you. I could not, for the life of me, figure out how to adjust, like transform it in any way, how to change the vertices or anything. So I just had to accept that it was a sphere. So I kind of gave up on that one. And I switched to using a cylinder with 2 spheres on the top and the bottom to kind of create the body form. I'm doing a little bit of a longer Korok on this one. A little bit different. And I use cylinders again for the stems and then the arms. And yet again, more cylinders on the legs. I just kept adding more cylinders and more cylinders. And there's a little nose cylinder. And then, would you guess, I used another cylinder for the leaf because I just could not figure out how to transform it in any way. Halfway through, I decided to try to render because I didn't think I could put much more detail into the thing itself. So I wanted to see what this would look like in the Animator rendering. Got a little animation going on the camera. And then I went back to the modeling because I forgot the face details. So I added a couple more cylinders and spheres for the face and decided that that was good enough. I did more finagling with the rendering. Eventually exported out a render. It's very tiny, very low resolution. Kind of ugly, you might call it, but it's also beautiful in its own way, much like this giant bright light. coming through the window. This one is a little bit cursed. I think I managed to make something that does resemble the Korok, but it wasn't the most beautiful solution. A little bit scuffed. So this one maybe gets 3 default cubes out of 5 for this little fella. Not bad, but not great. I can reflect light into my face. Look at this. Aww. So bright. It's like I have a flashlight in the palm of my hand. This next one you can use right now. Just go to 3dslash.net and you can do some modeling right there in your browser. It's basically like chiseling out a marble statue, but if that marble statue was in Minecraft. For this one, I've tried just manually cutting it out, but I noticed that you can import an image and have it cut based on that. So I did a little outline of the guy and imported it and cut out his shape. I had to go in and fine tune a lot of stuff behind the mask, because what's the point of the dang mask? And then I got to the painting, which is kind of like pixel art painting. You have a super limited color palette on the web version for some reason, so I did not have access to the color black. So I used purple for the eyes and the mouth. Did a little more finagling to make his stems look a little nicer. Tried to do a little bit of rounding on the forms, add a little bit more detail, make it not so blocky and square. I spent most of my time doing that actually. Added a little more paint for the wood texture. Made sure to add in the nose because I had to do that separately. Even more rounding. So much rounding. Look at them go. Okay, then I added a couple notches, little cutouts of the leaf because that existed in the reference image. Makes it look a little more worn, a little more frazzled. And then I did a little export of the object. There he is. I think this one turned out pretty good. It's a lot closer, I think, than the previous one was. The main problem is the colors. The colors are way off, and he's a little bit stiff looking. But I think using the tool, it was surprisingly fun to use. I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5 default cubes. Sketchup. It's not really for making little guys. It's supposed to be used for architecture and like interior design, but I'm here to break the rules. So I started off making myself a cylinder. You have to like draw out these shapes. It was so difficult to get things to position in the right way because they just want to snap everywhere. They just want to keep snapping. They just always want to snap. So it took a long time to just get things centered where I wanted them. I have a little cylinder for the body, added little cuts, make a little variation in the shape, added his little feet on the bottom out of cones. Spent a long time trying to figure out how to add his arms in because I just wanted to slice. The rotation is like an absurd tool. It's freaky, it's horrifying, it's hard to use, but I eventually figured it out. And then did a similar thing to the stems on the top as I did in Blender. It was kind of easier in this program, honestly. Making the leaf was a breeze. It's like I could draw a nice little thing with a cutout. Add another cone for the nose. More cones for the stems. A little bit of stem action, and then I got onto the texturing. Did little base colors for each of them, and then drew on the face features, which is kind of cool. You get to use a pen tool and like actually draw the shape. So that ended up looking pretty good. This Korok's face is more like a lily pad, so I did that. And then I discovered you can use actual wood textures. They have them built into the program. So that's what I used for the body. And then at the very end, at the last second, I noticed I had a little bit of time, 4 or 5 minutes, so I decided to add his little staff. And I got it in there like literally just in time, right at the cutoff, and I think it really paid off. So like this one, it was so hard to use, so different from like every 3D program I've used elsewhere. But I think by the end of it, it actually pulled through, and this is like possibly the most accurate. This one's surprisingly good. I'm gonna give it 5 out of 5 default cubes. Spore. Finally, we've gotten to one whose purpose is actually to make little guys. You can just ignore the rest of the game. Come on, it's just about making little creatures. So that's exactly what I did. I popped the creature creator. I started off by making a long, skinny spine to make the main shape. This one has a very tall head and a small little stubby body. I added in some arms and some legs, and he's already looking pretty close. Did some messing around to try to get the stems to look correct. And then the leaf on the front was definitely the hardest aspect. I tried a lot of different attachments to see what could look the closest. So I placed a lot of things down and then erased. At this point, I gave him a little nose and some little tiny beady eyes, which I liked a lot. Then decided to rework the feet. I found that they can be tiny and stem-like if you attach the feet to the very top of the head and have them stick through the body. You'll see I also added a weird little tube to the top of the head to add the little cutout in the middle of the leaf. I wanted his arms to actually work correctly like real arms, so I eventually found some arms that looked somewhat similar. I then decided to switch out the leaves for these like bat wing things on the face. Then spent a long time trying different textures and colors to see if I could get anything that looks close to it. The textures take like forever to load. I eventually landed on something that looks kind of close. Like I wanted to add more green for the leaf, but you can't really control what happens to the bat wings, unfortunately. But here he is. Spent a lot of time just making him dance, do a little jig, do a little goof, a little bit of a gaff. There's a bunch of little tiny versions of it. Compared to what I was worried it was going to look like based off the beginning of the program, I think I did a pretty good job. The main thing I dislike is the colors, but I do like the fact that he's literally alive. His mouth works, his nose works, he has eyes, he has arms, he has legs, they move. This is the only one of them that is mobile. He can walk around. That's pretty cool. Just because of that, I think I'm also going to give this one a 5 out of 5 default cubes. Nothing else can move like this. It's cool. Now that we're 6 programs in, it's finally time for some education with this software called Maker's Empire. It's basically a tool to teach children how to model Sonic. In order to do this, I had to first set up an account. So I made myself a little character. For some reason, they ended up being a pirate of some kind with horns. I had to then go through a tutorial sequence where they had me do a bunch of different tasks before I could actually start modeling whatever I wanted. So like 7 minutes in, I was finally able to actually make whatever I wanted. So when I first started, I thought that the best way to do it was to use this drawing tool that allows you to sketch out a shape and it makes it into a model. That had a bunch of problems though. It crashed on me multiple times, but eventually I was able to get something fairly close. Just like 15 minutes in it, I was like, okay, so I've done it that way. I might as well make it another way using the actual shapes. So I made myself a little pill, some cone arms and legs, cone toppings, very similar to other models. I eventually landed on these heart shapes that I used with some like triangles and some spheres to try to make the leaf look as close as possible. I think it looks decently close by the end. It's not perfect, but it's decently close. Added in some more shapes for the face details. A little bit of an eyebrow raising. I then inset the model inside to have the 2 colors, to have the rim color. Yeah, I couldn't figure out how to do any actual texture painting, so I just added models of different colors basically to do all the coloring. So I made this weird little shape that I copied and pasted along for the, I don't know, the leaf veins. I also added a little staff for this one at the last second, just like in SketchUp. I think it looked pretty good. I'd say this one looks decently good. It's not anything crazy. It's not anything really new and interesting. I think it looks fairly close to the model, so I'm gonna give it like a 3 out of 5 default cubes. I then spent some time scrolling through the marketplace they have where other kids have posted their works. It's mostly Roblox avatars and horrific Sonics. This one says, so cute. I don't know what's happening to the children these days. Sonic and Roblox. Roblox and Sonic is pretty much the entirety of this world. And then I found a Minecraft Steve. On the other end of the scale, we have the very professional and adult Maya. This is the software that I learned in college, and it's like basically the industry standard. Let's see if I still remember how to use it. Similarly to Blender, I started with a bit of a sphere, and then I adjusted it to make it more pill-shaped. Selected some faces to extrude, and then combined into points to make the little feet, and they look pretty nice. It looks round with little pointy feet. And then did the same thing that I did to the feet, to the head, to make, I don't know if you would call them ear stems. I then had some horrific problem. I don't know what the hell happened. I don't know what happened here. So that ate up a bit of time trying to fix that. I tried to make it look less like ears and more like part of the body. I don't know, it didn't quite work. I then started doing my good old add little cones into things instead of actually modeling it. I was getting so stressed at this point. It was not going as well as I was hoping. I then got to the leaf part, which is basically like a big surfboard. A big surfboard that I tried to make a little bit more organic. Turned out okay. Not the greatest surfboard I've ever seen. I actually tried to make his arms wiggle and woggle and wabble and grobble. And then I added a little bit of a mushroom, because this guy's holding a mushroom. I don't know why he's holding a mushroom, but I'm giving him a mushroom, damn it. Might as well. Did a little coloring, some basic coloring on the mushroom and the body. It's a little more difficult, I think, to paint the textures in Maya than it is in Blender. Maybe I'm just out of practice. So I resorted to just adding shapes for all of the pieces. This is the one that I was the least happy with. All of the controls are exactly the opposite of what they are in Blender. And since I've been spending so much time in Blender, it was so frustrating to go back. This one's bad. This is getting a 1 out of 5 default cubes. He's ugly, and I hate him. Get him out of my sight. You might not know this, but Ikea is a 3D modeling software. I'm using the Kitchen Designer to build not only a friendly little sidekick, but a beautiful home to live in. I use the Ikea Kitchen Planner, which is an online tool you can use, and I decided to make 2 different versions. This first one, I tried to shape him out of the room itself. You're living in the Korok, is your entire kitchen. So there's a little bit of an island there for the or a column in the middle for the nose. I have a nice wood flooring. I had to break the floor like all the way through the walls to make the leaf extend, so I had to curve the walls around it. I then decided to make the entire leaf area its own room. Pretty crazy, pretty ingenuitive. And then I gave him a little bit of a staff man on walls. So that was the first pass. This first one I'm gonna give actually a 5 out of 5 because you could live inside this Korok. I think if you saw this walking around, it would look like nothing. But if you saw it from an airplane, you'd be like, oh my god, that's a Korok. That's a Korok house. I then decided, since that took so little time, it only took like 20 something minutes, I'm going to make the Korok out of the furniture pieces inside of a big kitchen. So I started drawing the leaf out with a bunch of chairs You can never have too many chairs, you know. You could sit like 1,000 people in this room. You could do the craziest, the absolute craziest musical chairs here. And then change the floor to add a little texture in the background. The colors were really hard to do because they're just like floor tiles. Like you can't make a floor tiles green apparently. I then got out a bunch of different pieces of furniture, laid them all out so I knew what tools I had to work with. Used a bunch of tables and counters and benches and stuff to form the body out of real life wood. I then used a bunch of like frying pan skillet thingies in the face to do the drawing of the eyes. The second Korok, I mean, I think it's cool how crazy it is. Like you could sit in this kitchen technically and eat off these tables. It does look kind of horrific and scary even. I don't know. It's kind of a horror show, you might say. So I'm gonna give the second version maybe like a 2 out of 5 on the default cube scale. Let's just say this next one is gonna have to be heavily censored. I'm using a software called DAZ Studio, which from what I can gather is mostly used for making cursed, spicy 3D content for websites you shouldn't be on. I don't really know how I stumbled across it, but I did. So to start off, I tried to make like a scene. At the beginning, I was just messing around, trying to figure out what to even do. The program was crashing. I decided to try and see what I could do with the person model and if I could make the Korok out of a person. It crashed again. It just kept crashing. This program is terrible. So I started with the dude this time and tried to make the Korok out of his body. I was getting kind of scared and horrified by that point that I kind of gave up on that version. Then oh god, oh don't look at that. So I decided to reset and try to use their shape tools, much like I used in Animator. They're also super limited on what you can do, at least from what I could find, but it does have cones and it has cylinders. You can basically make any kind of Korok out of cones and cylinders, I found. I got a flat sphere for the leaf in the middle. This leaf's kind of like sideways, so I use some cones that have been flattened on each side to make this weird shape of this leaf. Another cone for the nose, classic. Little shapes for the eyes. My cat Teddy decided to hang out for a bit there. Got bored. Doesn't really like 3D modeling that much. You know, positioning on the little face shapes. Tried to do some coloring for the leaf using these little sticks. Teddy in the background once again, looking out the window as he does. I think it could have been worse. It could have been better. I was hoping I could make the Korok out of a person, but it was encroaching on body horror. So I gave up on that. So this version, it's kind of the most simple. I don't know. I'm going to give this one a 2. A 2 out of 5. It's not interesting. It's not interesting to me. It's just not my finest work. But for the next one, you gotta be ready. For my final software, I am leaving the digital world. Returning to Monkey to use the original 3D modeling tool, clay. I haven't ever used clay like this since I was like a dumb little kid. So let's see if I can make something that even resembles the Korok. I have no idea. So I did this in 2 stages. First stage was making the model out of clay. So I gave myself half an hour for the modeling part, half an hour for the painting. So I set up a little spot here. I have my air dry clay. It was recommended online. I'm going to be making the clay version based off of this Korok that I have. I didn't really know what I was doing at all at the beginning, so I tried to make the basic form. I wanted to have him sitting down so he wouldn't fall over. But basically, I just kept forming it, and then it would start to dry out, and I wouldn't be able to undo the cracks, so I would erase the whole thing, smush it back down. I did that several times. I kept doing it. Oh, we're getting pretty far. We're getting pretty far here. We're almost... Oh, I messed it up. and I squished him down. I then noticed like maybe he needs a little bit of water because it's just getting cracked and dry and he's splitting. So I added a little bit of water and that actually helped a lot. It made it a little bit more messy. I didn't like that part, but I was actually able to hold his form better and smooth him out. I then only had like 4 minutes left. I was like, oh, I gotta make the leaf. I then tried my best to attach them together. I wasn't very confident that it would hold once it dried. Let's see how it looked after it finally dried. Well, to no surprise, the leaf did not stay attached at all. It just kind of fell off. It just fell like straight off. But the model itself, I think, is actually okay. It's got little butt cheeks. He looks a little bit rotund, which is fine. I think it's somewhat accurate. But now it was time for the coloring. I used acrylic paint because it was what I had available. I had a couple different colors and I did a little bit of mixture of orange and yellow and green to kind of make the wood color of the base. I then used yellow, blue, and green and white in order to make the leaf color, this like nice pale green. Tried to make a darker brown color for the stripes in the wood, but I did not have a black color at all. So in order to darken it, I had to use blue, which made it blue. I then needed to add the darker colors around the leaf, which was by adding blue once again to the green. I painted it and I tried to get it to dry as quickly as I could, so that way I could paint on the little tiny details that I made even darker with more blue. This one's like pretty blue in order to get those details in. I think it looked, I think it worked pretty well. I finished it just in time and then I had to wait for it to dry. And then here he is, complete. Here he is sitting on top of my cat Beef. Beef the cat holding up our beautiful Korok. I think he looks pretty nice. I'm pretty happy with how he turned out. His arms and legs ended up being a little bit more stubby than I intended them to, but he sits really well. I used super glue to glue the leaf on, but it holds pretty well now. Some might call that cheating. I also might call it that, but what other choice did I have? But he sits down real well. I like him. I think he's cute. Just because this is my first time using actual clay, I'm gonna give myself 5 out of 5 default cubes. I'm gonna hold on to him forever and ever, and I'm never gonna lose him. So that was all of the models, 10 of them. 10 hours of modeling later. We have all these to work with. Look at all of them. Look at all of them. Which one was your favorite? What are some other programs you'd want me to use? I kind of want to use some weird programs. So let me know if you have any ideas in the comments. See you later.